Chris Brown, Northern District Public Service Commissioner, is on with us. Good morning, Commissioner. How are you, sir? It's good to have you.
Good morning, Paul. How you doing? Thanks for having me.
Can you hear me? Everything is loud and clear here?
Yes, sir. Can you hear me?
I can hear you loud and clear. Good.
Great.
Just to start off, a couple of different things here. Congratulations, and thank you for being the voice on this Holly Springs thing. I can't tell you how many people I've gotten that says, look, we didn't know anything about this, had no earthly idea what was going on in Holly Springs. And with that information that went out, apparently it's turned into a possible solution, and I'll let you speak to that.
Yes, sir. Since last we talked, the governor actually signed a bill to enable the Public Service Commission to kind of go in and try to help fix the situation, which we were a little bit powerless before. We could bring attention to it and show the reasons why it's happening, but we weren't able to really take any action. So what the legislature passed and what the governor signed is a bill to allow us to come in and evaluate the system and then deem if it's providing adequate and reasonable service or not. If it's not, then the bill triggers it to go to a local chancery court. Think about like a school that goes into receivership. Schools are underperforming. The kids are suffering in that system. So this basically does a similar action to where that utility district goes into receivership. You find experts, they come in, they triage the system, they stabilize it, and then the judge will make a decision later who's going to run that system after it's fixed and after it's triaged and stabilized.
It's the Holly Springs guys and gals there have to be a poster boy and girl of this problem. And as you alluded to, and several people, I don't think they wanted this either. I mean, it was beyond their capacity to take care of this, with no GM for over a year, no direction out there. The city, the elected officials were totally lost on this situation. I guess my question as far as the bill, and it's Senate Bill 2453, I do believe. Are you okay with that? Everything in the bill seems to be something that you feel like can get the job done?
Yes, sir. I do think it gives us the tools to go in and help those people that are in. It's a true crisis up there, Paul. It's pretty amazing when you go in. We had a group of our investigators out yesterday, and they were taking pictures of what they saw. Holly Springs is doing some work on the main roads. As you get in the interior roads, it's still extremely grown over. Our investigative team met with some locals up there and talked to them about how much they're out of power and how just unreliable the system is. And I will say this: this is nothing against the employees of the system. I heard that they hired 2 more linemen. Those employees are working hard. They just don't have the tools they need. And so this legislation will allow the city of Holly Springs and the utility district to get the resources that district needs. There's no leadership there now. Like you said, they don't really have anybody running it. So again, the city should welcome this as a way to help them stabilize that system and serve all the people in that utility district. But again, which even goes into...
Yeah, they're so far back on tree maintenance. And when we saw some of the pictures, and I think we sent some of these pictures out, the kudzu and the tree limbs had been left to grow for so long, you couldn't even see some of the transformers and everything else up on the top of those lines. Do they have the finances, as far as the city, to even get this done?
They don't at this point. And the problem is, Paul, with no leadership, there's very little appetite to send a lot of cash to them, to the utility district. When there's no manager to run it and to guide the system, you can't entrust millions of dollars that it's going to take to fix to nobody. I think we heard testimony in our hearing that our open meetings that we had in Jackson, that some of the local co-ops are more than willing to come in and help, but they can't at this point because they can't be guaranteed of the safety of the lines. I spoke to a representative of AT&T, and he said that even their crews are in danger over there because all the vegetation, they don't know what's hot, what's not. And even climbing those poles, touching that vegetation and everything around there, they can't even maintain the phone lines like they want or should.
For all of us outside the TVA influence here, how do they play into this?
TVA has a narrow scope. They can regulate. They do regulate the rates, and they sell them power basically. And so there's a service agreement that TVA agrees to sell them power for a certain amount of money, and then there's very little regulatory oversight. They do regularly ask for financials to try to make sure they're on track to have a functioning system. They've also offered Holly Springs some assistance to find forensic accountants to kind of come in and help them with their books, as well as a search team to find somebody to run that utility district. But to this point, the utility district has not taken them up on those, or have not complied with the reports required.
So what's the next step now? What do we do now with the new power that you have as far as the PSC? I can't envision anything changing as far as the city council and their group is concerned, nor can you see anything changing as far as who's able to vote on that. I think you had specified that 82% of the people who are using the service are in the county, and they have no voice whatsoever as far as the city voting. So what happens next?
That'll be up to what happens next is we go in and we have a hearing, if you will. So Holly Springs Utility District have an opportunity to defend what they have or haven't done. TVPPA will come in and tell their part of the story. The people impacted will have a chance to tell their story, and then we'll take all that data as quick as we can and make a determination whether they're providing reasonable, adequate service. If they're not providing reasonable, adequate service, then it goes to Chancery Court into that receivership model we were talking about earlier. We want it to have.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
So we want to work through that process as quick as we can to try to stabilize and triage that system, because even the power goes out even in summer.
It sounds like most of those questions have already been answered as far as them doing what they're doing and not doing what they're supposed to be doing. So you said as quick as possible. How quick do you think that is? Because I would imagine they're still having a lot of outages in the Holly Springs area.
They are. So we've already started our part as far as gathering the experts and trying to get Tom Suggs back to doing another evaluation of the system to see kind of where they're at now, because they are starting to do some more clearing. A couple of our investigators, Steve and Josh, were up there yesterday, and they saw some activity on the main roads. You go to the secondary roads, and they're still pretty bad. But I'll forward you some pictures of what they took yesterday and what we saw up there.
When you look at the other parts of the state and you talk to the other commissioners, is this happening? Maybe not to this degree, but is this happening in any other place in the state that you know about, to the point where there needs to be maybe an active conversation on taking it over in some other parts of the state?
No, sir. There is nothing that rises to the level of what we see in Holly Springs Utility District. Even Tom Suggs testified to that. There's 153 members of that in the TVA Valley, and that comprises all the states that TVA is in. This is the only one out of 153 in this situation. So it took a while to get here, and it's going to take a while to get out. But we're dedicated and committed to seeing this through to provide reasonable, adequate service to the people in that utility district.
Well, at least they have some hope now with this bill, and it has been signed, so it is officially. It became the law of the land and media upon the signature, not July 1st, right?
That's exactly right. The House made that small adjustment amendment and sent it to the Senate. They concurred and moved on. And I know a lot of people in Benton County. My parents grew up in Benton County. My grandmother, 98-year-old grandmother, still lives in Hickory Flat. So we have a lot of friends and family up there that, again, tell us every day about how um,
That's,
how
yeah.
dire the circumstances are in that utility district.
Chris, there was something else that happened that passed. It was HB 1664. I want to talk about that when we come back. Can you hang on for a second? Chris Brown,
Yes, sir.
Northern District Public Service Commissioner. When we return on another bill that is promising. Back with more next. There was another bill out there to ask the Northern District Public Service Commissioner about this one. And Chris, I think it was HB 1664. The House and Senate passed it, a bill to close the loopholes in the campaign finance law of the Public Service Commissioner's office and for the candidates, something that you and I talked about. And one of the tenets of your campaign to get this taken care of. Your thoughts on this?
We supported the bill. Chairman Powell did a great job of getting it through committee and getting it out of the House and passing the Senate. Basically, we don't need undue influence placed on the Public Service Commissioners to provide solar or any other power generation that may or may not raise rates, lower rates, or destabilize the whole system itself. So that was a good piece of legislation. I think all three of us commissioners supported that bill.
It was kind of interesting because during this time, during the governor's election, and Brandon Presley at all the while said this had no bearing whatsoever on any of his decisions. That's the same Mr. Presley, who is now working for the one of these companies. I'm not sure if it's the same company, but the solar people, one way or the other. Did have something that just happened. Hang on a second. Tim in Cleveland said, I didn't know this until today, but there was a meeting last night in Cleveland concerning installing wind turbines in Bolivar County. Even our local paper didn't know about it until yesterday afternoon. Seems like they're trying to be sneaky about this. Well, a pretty good deal as far as a big solar farm or a wind farm. You would think it would be in the news. Do you guys have any heads up when that is in the works or when they're in the final stages?
We do. Actually, we had two on the docket this last week, and one of them was at Fiddle Falls in Pontotoc. And so before any of Pontotoc County, which is in the district, there's another one in the Delta that we're going to evaluate. So when a company comes in and wants to put solar generation into the system, they're referred to the Public Service Commission, and then we have hearings locally. So let your viewers stay tuned. We will announce it when we're having it. We'll put it on our website and others to try to make sure we have local input and impact in that area before we move on any issue like that. So they are supposed to be open meetings and public meetings, and we definitely want the public's input on those.
The one in Pontotoc County you said was a wind turbine or a solar farm?
It's a solar farm. It's
solar farm.
Fiddle Falls. Kind of a fun name to say, but it sticks with you. It's in Fiddle Falls, Pontotoc.
What's the status of the one up in the Clarksdale and Tunica area as far as the wind turbines? How advanced are they now with that one?
It's getting closer. Of course, that was done before our time. We do need to really look at those technologies. I know we recently passed a resolution endorsing nuclear. Nuclear is clean. It's no carbon. It's readily available, and it's extremely reliable. It doesn't rely on the weather. If the wind's not blowing, you're still generating power. If the sun's not shining, you're still generating power. Solar and wind both have serious limitations, especially solar, because you can only generate power when the sun's shining. And if it doesn't move with the sun, you don't have 100% capacity, except for 5-10% of the time.
Yeah. And by the way, there's nothing AI can do about that as far as technology. If the sun ain't shining, the sun ain't shining. If the wind ain't blowing, the wind ain't blowing.
A lot of this is part of the Green New Deal policy being pushed down from D.C., and I just don't think they're following. They've thought this through very well. You start having impacts. You know, what are you going to do with this? With these solar fields once they've reached the end of their lifespan. I've got a small little oil well that I've had, and it doesn't produce much. It's in rural Monroe County, and I've had it for 12, 15 years, and it's changed 4 or 5 times over the last 10, 15 years, getting a smaller and smaller company every time.
Yeah.
So that's what you're going to see these solar farms possibly do as it gets towards the end of their life cycle. It's going to be a smaller and smaller company that's investing in it. So once they go down or they're obsolete, who's going to clean those fields up? The landowner or the state?
Yeah. Well, here's what really aggravates the hell out of me is that when there are possibilities that harmful chemicals are going to leach into the soil from these things, the environmentalists don't say anything. The Sierra Club, where's the Sierra Club on this one? There were a couple of examples, and we've seen pictures of these, and I hope they haven't been photoshopped or something, but some massive, massive solar farms that were totally, and I mean, you're looking at thousands of them, totally destroyed by a hailstorm. And people saying all of that chemical has leached into the soil, and there's no way to get it out of there. Have you heard one single solitary thing from the EPA, from the Biden administration, from the Sierra Club, anybody else? And the answer is no.
No. Same thing with all the wildlife that are killed by the wind turbines. The interesting part is, a lot of this, we don't know what the environmental impact is. And once you start looking at it, Toyota, it's an EV world, but Toyota has I think it's the 1690 rule, to where the impact on the economy and the environment, you can build one EV, 6 plug-in hybrids, or 90 hybrids. So if you can build 90 hybrids with less impact on the environment than one EV, why are we pushing EVs so hard? So I think it's an agenda, or it's an agenda those people are pushing that doesn't necessarily make sense in the real world. And of course, we've seen government do that before, though. We've seen government push agenda, Green New Deal, that just doesn't make sense long term. And again, I'm not against any.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
I'm not against. Sorry about that. I'm an all-above guy.
Delay. Lance sent me this on Elon Musk, and Lance, I forgot. I'm just trying to do by memory here. I read it a little bit earlier, but there's some massive layoffs at Tesla because they're not matching these sales. And again, what aggravates a lot of us is these sales were propped up by tax incentives that the American people had to pay. Even if you're driving a combustion engine, and the cost of combustions probably went up to match the freebie that you're getting from these. Now they're not selling anymore. Stock has gone down 31%, massive layoffs. And who's left holding the bill on this is the American people. Here's another cut here, just for the sake of EVs.
Louis Pugh spent 25 years as a trucker and joins me now. Louis, would these new rules put you out of business?
I work for OIDA. We represent 150,000 small business truckers out there. The White House is completely not listening to the trucker, the end user, or the buyer. They just want to do what the extreme environmentalists want. And what it's going to do is put lots and lots of truckers out of business. And no one even wants to talk about all the challenges and operational challenges that come with these trucks.
They want, by 2032, they want 60% of urban delivery trucks to be electric and 25% of long-haul trucks to be electric.
Where are we going to charge them? There was a company in Joliet, Illinois, that was going to put a terminal in for 30 trucks. The city said you can't do it. You're going to use more electricity than the entire city of Joliet, Illinois.
That's it. Dawn of reality is hitting them, Chris, when they start doing that.
Well, and what they don't calculate is you got to generate the energy to charge the vehicles. And if we charged all the vehicles, if we had all EVs right now, our power grid would not support it. And so they're taking power generation off, like natural gas, which is clean and has really impacted carbon, if that's what they're after, in a positive way over the years. So if they're really serious about reducing carbon, they should be embracing natural gas. One thing we did, talking about subsidies, in our last docket meeting, there was solar subsidies for that were put on the ratepayers. So there was a subsidy up to 2% of the total project, and some more that basically went into the rate base, charging the ratepayers of Mississippi for this. We think if renewables and solar and wind are viable, they don't need Mississippi tax credits, or don't put it on the people and make your neighbor pay for yours. So we put a stay on that here recently to try to protect the ratepayer from this Green New Deal kind of policies.
One of the questions we've always asked as a regular consumer was, great, we got all of this energy that's producing energy by the sun, which is free, and by the wind, which is free. Sir, ma'am, is this going to make our bills any cheaper or at least stay the same? Maybe, maybe not.
It goes up. Renewables are proven to be more expensive.
Chris, thank you, sir. Appreciate it very much. As far as that turbines on and solar farms, one of the things that the Public Service Commission, I hope, does in the future is make sure somewhere in that signed contract that the leaching into the soil and the aftermath of these things is taken care of as part of the contract. Thank you, Chris. More coming up next.
God bless.